Well, hello there, friends. It's so weird because every time I am on, there's a little bit of a delay. And so you let me just hold on. I always forget to do this. Let me turn down my phone and switch it off so that I can concentrate on what I'm doing. Welcome, welcome. This is the final live broadcast tonight, and it is all about your questions. Dr. Westman and I are going to answer all of your questions tonight. And for tonight's session, please don't feel intimidated to ask any questions you wish to ask. Ask away. Dr. Westman may not be able to answer a medical related questions just because obviously, you know, as a doctor, you need a full sort of backstory or medical history on a patient. But we will try and answer every single question. Don't think your question is too silly to ask, although we've probably been asked the same question 100 times. You can ask it anyway. And then reminding you that when you do have a question, to use the hashtag and put the word question in all caps so that we can easily see, pick it up, because we are live streaming into 8 groups. I probably tell you this every time, but so you may not see that there's many questions on your screen, but we get everybody's questions on our screen. So if you have a hashtag and the word question, the question in all caps, it helps us to pick it up easier. So, and then of course followed by your question. And what else did I want to say? Yeah, let us know where you're watching from and that you're here with us, and give us the thumbs up. We love to see you on the screen and say hi. Let's see. Okay, what we're going to do. So a reminder as well that our Keto Made Simple Masterclass is closing. The doors are closing tonight at at midnight PST. So if you do have any questions or you're still on the fence, tonight is definitely the night to ask those questions. We want to make sure that your questions get answered and that you know exactly what you're getting into. The course is absolutely phenomenal. We start inside the course. Well, you get immediate access to the course, but we start in the Facebook group, which is the support portion of the class, on Monday. And so we're excited. All of our questions all of your questions will be answered. And Doc, are you ready? Let's dive right in.
Hi, Lisa. How you doing?
Hi. Good. Are you ready to dive into all the questions?
I am.
Okay, awesome. So what I did is I actually took a few questions as well from we live stream, as you know, into 8 different groups. So sometimes we get questions and we didn't get to answering them in the last live. So I've got a couple of those that we can start with. And then you guys can just dive right in and you can start asking questions right away. And as soon as we get caught up, we will take your questions next. So let's get to these questions. All right, so Mary asks, what is the difference between total carbs and net carbs?
Yeah, so the method that I teach was developed before people started talking about net carbs. So we use a total carb method, and I know there's a lot of confusion about that. The net carb is calculated by subtracting out the fiber and subtracting out the sugar alcohols. And to make it even more complicated, there's a company who developed their own method of testing for net carbs. That was the Atkins company. So if you look on some of their products, it doesn't add up right if you try to do your own calculation. So because of that confusion, and because some people actually do absorb the fiber grams, you see net carbs is used assuming that you don't absorb fiber grams, but some people do. And net carbs is used assuming that these sugar alcohols or other sorts of sweeteners don't affect your metabolism. And in some people they do. So my philosophy, I want my program to work the first time, every time that, like a prescription drug, I use total carbs. I don't have people subtract out the fibers, and I know there's some apps that do that for you, and simply changing from net carbs to total carbs can make all the difference in a program starting to work for you at a plateau. So if you're at a plateau and you're using net carbs and you're buying some products at the store that say great for keto, the simple thing you might need to do is just not have those products, use the total carb calculation, and then, wow, it'll start working. So the program we use total carbs, and another person put it another way, net carbs just means more carbs. And so if you're someone who needs to be super strict on the carbs, net carbs might not work for you. Another way I've learned to phrase it that seems to stick is using net carbs is like an over-the-counter medicine. It can work for a lot of people, but if you want a prescription strength program, if you have medicines you're trying to get off, you have a long weight loss journey, then the prescription strength method that we use is a better fit because it's going to be faster. It's going to be less prone to these plateaus. I mean, the most common reason for a plateau, quote, is eating too many carbs. It is net carbs, yeah. and that's an easy fix. And that I know causes a lot of confusion. And even to make it more confusing, the first book I wrote, I helped to write, The New Atkins, did use net carbs. Although in the fine print it said you may be someone who needs to use total carbs. In our latest book and in the Keto Made Simple Masterclass, I go back to the prescription strength total carb method. It's what I use in my practice. It's what we studied and published papers on, and that's why I stick to it.
Okay, perfect. Desiree says, I don't have a gallbladder. Can I safely do a keto diet?
Yes, absolutely. Now, if you're doing the ALA, the Adapter Life Academy members over the last 6 months have kind of coined this new term called internet keto. Some of you may have been, I saw some comments like, what's internet keto? Well, it's that keto out there that's not tested in the studies, and it's not something that I endorse. Sometimes if you're adding oils like medium chain triglyceride and coconut oil, which I don't ask you to do on our program, if you're adding too many oil, or you're on a metformin, you're on medications, and you get stomach upset and you think, well, it's because I don't have a gallbladder. It might be actually because you're adding in all these oils and it's too much, it overwhelms your gallbladder. So in a program like mine, it's fine if you don't have a gallbladder because we don't ask you to add in oils and make sure you get enough fat in the foods and macro counting. I mean, So if you do internet keto, not having a gallbladder might be a problem. But if you switch to a program that's been tested like ours, it's not a problem.
Okay. Can you explain what keto adaptation is and how long does it take to become keto adapted?
So keto adaptation is the technical term for changing from eating and drinking carbs mainly to not eating and drinking carbs, and you become a fat burning machine, a fat burner. The predominant fuel your body uses inside is fat, and from that fat you generate ketones from your own body fat. And so that transition from carb eating and carb burning to not eating carbs and fat burning, sometimes people get headache, sometimes people feel lethargic or some fatigue. We have a way to reduce your likelihood of getting those symptoms. That's using the electrolyte supplements, and talk about that in the class. The common language is called keto flu out on the internet, but most people don't get a keto adaptation symptoms or get keto flu. And I wish it was called, keto headache and fatigue a little bit, and it's not that bad. The keto flu is like this big. No one wants the flu. I mean, for heaven's sake. And it, rarely, I would say maybe 1 in 100, someone gets, comes back and says, yeah, I had pretty bad keto flu. I felt really bad. And then I'll say, did you use the the bouillon supplementation that I mentioned, and the people usually say, no, I didn't. So there's some things you can do to reduce your chances of getting these keto adaptation symptoms. Generally, it's a couple days, maybe 3 days, maybe a week. In worst case, and it's interesting because the way the internet works is fascinating. You hear from the extremes. So you're going to hear someone who says, "Oh, it took me 2 weeks to get over the keto flu, keto adaptation." And it's like, well, yeah, but if you took a bell-shaped curve, 2 weeks is the outlier. And that's, be careful, because if you're learning from the internet, there's a lot of great information, but you often learn from the extremists, the highlight reel of the people who do the best or the people who do the worst. And there are a lot of people, the silent people in the middle, who are doing just great, don't speak up. So there are ways to reduce your chances of keto flu or keto adaptation. And it's a few days, maybe a week tops.
I'm going to pepper in some of these questions and then get back to the questions that I picked up from previous people were asking previously. So let me get to Ellen's question. She says a friend of hers wanted to do keto to drop 10 to 15 pounds, but he has atrial fibrillation.
Yeah, I've treated lots of people with atrial fibrillation, and we actually heard the compelling testimonial this week from Melanie, who has the arrhythmia check as a monitor that, she knows how many arrhythmias she's had, and she has atrial fibrillation, and she has much fewer arrhythmias. So of course you want to talk to your doctor before doing this. My experience, because I've done this so long, and the program I use is what's known as a well-formulated ketogenic diet, I have no problem treating someone with atrial fibrillation. Now, common questions arise when, well, my doctor says I shouldn't, and all that. Some cardiologists actually are very keto friendly now, because keto diets can actually be effective to treat heart failure, and keto diets treat metabolic syndrome, which is a cause of the coronary disease. So there are a lot of cardiologists and doctors who are shifting from the old paradigm of the total LDL and don't eat fat in the foods, to the new one, which is you look at the triglyceride, the HDL, and it's okay to have fat in the foods, and sugar is the bad guy. So so in my experience, that wouldn't be a reason not to do it, but you want to make sure that you have a doctor to follow you locally, I think, who is supportive. Because, the worst thing is you start feeling bad, and then you go in, and for whatever reason, the doctor says, what are you doing? What are you eating? And anyway, so there's kind of a way to finesse the doctor conversation. Just tell them you're doing the Mediterranean diet. And this is very close to different types of Mediterranean diets. There isn't just one Mediterranean diet. And then most doctors will go, oh, well, that's okay. And the joke about that is they don't really know much about diet, but that's the one word. That's the one word that's okay. You never want to say you're doing Atkins. I mean, if the doctor's over 40 years old, because we were all taught it was terrible. And then, of course, my story is I met Dr. Atkins and asked him to fund the research on it, and he did. And now, 20 years later, I don't mind using the term Atkins, and I think he was a pioneer, but a lot of other doctors are still kind of allergic to those names.
Yeah, and also, the way we do keto is very different, as you said, to internet keto, because almost everyone in the internet world thinks that keto is a high-fat diet, and it's not a high-fat diet. Our diet is not a high-fat diet. So,
right.
I wonder where that came from. Can you just explain where did the high-fat part of things come from, and why are we not high-fat?
Yeah, so if you come to diet trying to lose body fat off your body, obesity, diabetes world, that's my world of using a keto diet. There's plenty of fat on the person's body. You don't need to feed fat to that person. And the ketones come from the body fat. You don't have to drink ketones and eat fats. So where that comes from is the keto diets that aren't for weight loss. So keto diets have actually been used to treat childhood epilepsy, where the child doesn't have extra weight on their body, and you have to feed them fat in order to get the ketones going. And some children their epilepsy is fixed overnight, and you have to feed them fat. So what happened over the last few years, and it has to happen for a certain, I guess, aggregate interest and awareness, and then companies will start changing the foods, and there's been a lot of change, keto this, keto that out there, and these folio wraps, which are egg white kind of crepes and things. It's interesting to see, but you don't want to add fats and oils. It's not high fat on your plate when you're using our approach for weight loss or fixing diabetes, because actually like 20 or 30% of your energy comes from your own body fat.
Okay, so the reason why you are doing the diet makes all the difference. I mean,
exactly. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and so you're going to see. I mean, so if you're watching a guru, influencer, on YouTube or Instagram or somewhere, and they are bodybuilders, they've never had to lose weight. They're going to tell you eat fat, oils, and drink coffee with all this and that, but they're not doing it to lose weight.
Right.
They're just trying to optimize the ketones and the fat burning, and so the reason you do it makes all the difference. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Well, here's another similar question. What about, have you had success with patients with lipedema?
Yes. In fact, I was trying to explain to someone this week where I fit in the whole keto thing. So I helped grow that initial sapling of research, the tree trunk, if you will, so that we publish papers on. And if you don't know about publishing papers, it's a long road. You collect information from people, and you collect the statistics, and you send it into journals, and they reject it, and you change. I mean, it's a long. I've seen doctors even kind of be dismissive of a study. And at one meeting, I said, "Wait a minute, I did that one, and let me tell you how difficult it was." So anyway, I stick to my data. That's one thing we're taught at Duke. So we're one of the teams that created that tree trunk of knowledge about keto, and you want to keep the carbs low. So we know the basics, the fundamentals that are really key. And now all these other branches that have come off the internet, keto this, keto that, and other things, they're not really necessary, or sometimes they're too strong for people, and just getting the fundamentals right. So there are a lot of ways to do it, but I like to do it in a way that's simple, that's uncomplicated, and now I forget what the question was. Did I answer it?
Well, and I'm so busy looking at all the other questions that I've also forgotten what the question was. Okay. Hold on. It was about lipedema. Have you had?
Oh, right. So an occupational therapist came to me, it must be 6-7 years ago now, and she said she wanted to do a study for lipedema. Because nothing works for lipedema and lymphedema, and doctors don't even know the difference. Most don't, but obesity medicine specialists do. Her name was Leslyn Keith, and Leslyn, I helped her put together a protocol and a study, and she got that paper to meetings and actually won awards for the research that she did and published the paper. And now she is a part of the lipedema seminars with Catherine SEO, SEO, and Leslyn and Catherine put on conferences about lipedema and lymphedema. And so I was just trying to explain that my role in this kind of, can you use it for this, is that I have often helped the other scientists who are trying to apply this to other approaches, help them get it started. And so I'm sort of a teacher, a mentor in this world for other practitioners as well. So yes, it can work for lymphedema.
Right.
And lymphedema.
Let's see. Okay. Karen says, my husband is doing keto with me and he has type 2 diabetes, and I'm hoping to understand more about the food and insulin before I pull the trigger on this class.
Well, that's module one. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the first element of the class, which is learning about how the carbohydrates affect the blood glucose, how the blood glucose affects the insulin. So we do it's not exhaustive. I really tried to make this understandable to my kind of typical patient who comes to me, who, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, and I don't try to bore you with all of the, big words. I really try to make it understandable. And so, yeah, you'll learn about glucose and insulin and how this affects type 2 diabetes. Absolutely. And in our class, even though we say, be careful, do this with your doctor, some people have done this with their doctor in the class and gotten off their diabetes medicine in that 3-week period that we will help coach you. So, but we want you to work with your own doctor in terms of getting off the medication safely.
So basically, the difference between the type 1 diabetic and type 2 diabetic is that the type 2 diabetic has over the years developed type 2 because
Yes.
of what that person has been eating, right?
Whereas and the excessive weight and the extra fat accumulation.
Okay. So it is type 2 is completely reversible, right?
In just about everyone. Just about everyone.
Okay. Well,
there's a small, so this is, again, like you're often taught by the extremes and all this. I applied to put a paper, a research paper, and one of the reviewers said, well, you said that people always have high insulin levels with type 2, and there's a small subset of people whose pancreases burn out by the end of their lives. I mean, if you live to 90, you live to 100, your pancreas might burn out and you might not have insulin anymore. But so I teach to the majority of people, and yet the reviewers for a journal, the internet's going to teach you by the extremes, and then my approach is to simplify things, make it as easy, tasty, effective as possible.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Can you please speak a bit about salt? Your book mentions we will probably need more salt. How do we determine how much salt to consume every day?
Yeah, that's a great question. And often people hear about electrolytes. Well, electrolytes really are sodium, potassium, and magnesium. So there are some people who promote everyone should get electrolytes, and it's not a coincidence that they sell them. So my approach is, well, get started. If you have any symptoms that suggest electrolyte issues, then add in the electrolytes. Although I do recommend that you have the salt, which is a component of the electrolytes. Adding the bouillon will help reduce your keto adaptation symptoms, but you want to be sure if you have high blood pressure or a history of heart failure or kidney failure, those are salt-sensitive conditions. Again, I go into that in the class. You want to be sure to be careful about not too much salt. So that's really one reason in the clinical world, if I'm dealing with people who mainly have medical problems, not the internet world, although last it was estimated 2/3 of Americans have some medical problem. So in a clinical setting, I'm careful to not have everyone take extra electrolytes, because it can actually make things worse for the blood pressure, for the heart failure. So, but the sodium is probably the most important electrolyte. So salt, as sodium and salt really are the same thing, synonyms. And you want to add in salt if you don't have those conditions. The amount is really not known. And I think there are a lot of people who pretend to know exactly how much. And one of my styles, again, it's I guess unique in that I want you to listen to your body. If you're hungry, you should eat. If you're thirsty, you should drink. And if you're craving salt, you should have salt.
Right.
So a lot of this, the cues that your body have had for thirst and salt and hunger, I mean, these are ancient sorts of drives, and you learn to listen to your body again. my teacher, one of my teachers, Steve Finney, who is sort of like the nutritional guru in this space, in his books will say you need 5 to 7 grams of sodium per day. That's like, almost a teaspoon of salt over the course of a day, once you're finally keto adapted. But you have to understand that he's talking about people who actually are like cyclists and elite athletes, and he's often having to replace the salt that people lose when they're doing elite athletic performances and sweating a lot. So right. I think what I teach is because I teach a wider range of people, is to start listening to your own body cues. Certainly if you have constipation or muscle cramps, I'm going to ask you to replenish the electrolytes, meaning the sodium, magnesium. And what's fascinating is most people don't need to replace potassium unless they're on a potassium wasting diuretic. And so anyway, so you see it's kind of complicated once you get into the medical realm when you have all these other things. It's simple if you don't have those things. Yeah. Extra electrolytes.
I mean, that's the reason why that's why we created our class called Keto Made Simple, because the confusion out there is there is so much confusion out there. Yeah. It's so overwhelming. And I feel so sorry for everybody, because obviously when you are needing to lose weight and you're desperate and you try so many different things and you worry about every little thing, and you want to do it right. You want to start off right on the right foot, and so if you are watching and this is you, I can assure you that this program is going to simplify for you. It is really going to help you in a big way. You can literally stop listening to all of this internet noise. But if you have pre-diabetes, or you want to reverse type 2 diabetes, or you on medications, or you have weight to lose, or if you want to increase your mobility, there are so many benefits that we will show you in this program. If you have arthritis pain, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But what we actually mention as well is that, yes, there's a lot of information on the internet right now, but what you're paying for is the plan that we are giving you. Your next right steps is where we're taking you, Dr. Westman's been doing this for over 20 years. I mean, the trust factor is totally there. You are in the right place.
Well, and I'm still doing it.
So you're still doing it, exactly.
I get the internet confusion. I watch people marching down in the weight, and then things get better, and then suddenly something stops, and I said, well, what happened? Well, I was watching, Dr. So-and-so on YouTube, and he said adding this, and I said, well, look what happened. So and things have changed. In one reason why I want to stay in practice just as long as I can is because, things change. The issues that come up, the keto cupcake that knocks you out of ketosis or gives you more ketones, but it gives you 500 calories when you make and eat 2 of them. I mean, so anyway,
yeah. We will show you step by step. I mean, that's why we call it the NEST method, and we keep it super simple. It is very sustainable, and after this 3-week period of you being with us, you will have you will be well on your way. Let's put it that way. Laura says another keto specialist, an MD who publishes popular keto books, said that to do keto properly, in addition to restricting carbohydrates, one must eat much more fat than protein. Is this true?
Show me the data.
True, Laura.
What we found in our research and in my clinical practice is that there's a wide range meaning there isn't a certain number of a macro or a percent. And to think about how it's just kind of silly to think you'd have to eat the same thing every day, right? So if a practitioner says you need to have this and this, and it has to be every day, every meal, or that's coming from the ketogenic diet for epilepsy, where you're trying to maintain ketones to be a medical treatment. So I come at it more from the, we're designed not to eat so darn much. And if you eat, one day it's just protein and the next day you have protein and fat and you're getting all your essential nutrients, that's a healthy way to live. Right. There's a lot of mistaken, or let's say people put out stuff like that to make you feel like they know the answer for everything. And if there's a doctor who, and there are several who I respect, who they've come from a clinical practice, meaning they tell people to do things, and then people come back to them and they're told, well, that didn't work for me. You see, you get humble, and you don't proclaim so much like the answer to everything, because people are different. And I wouldn't have dreamed that someone could lose weight like on a program like this, just eating at a fast food restaurant, until I instructed him, and all he did was eat at McDonald's, and he was losing 10 pounds a month, eating the burgers, no bun, no fries. And I'm like, wow. I mean,
whereas there's others that are going to say, you got to have the grass-fed beef, you got to have the organic, you got to have the pasture-raised eggs, you got to have. I mean, all of these things we just sort of pull back the curtain, and we do not ask you to do any of these things, including exercise. And again, this is very specific to people that have weight to lose, or medical, conditions, if they want to reverse their medical conditions.
This week, several people this week new to me had terrible knee pain. I mean, they couldn't exercise. Another person had hip trouble. I get a lot of referrals from the orthopedic surgeons who want their patients to lose weight before operations, because they know people do better if they've lost weight before that. But the idea that you need to exercise to lose weight is probably the most wrong information out there, perpetuated by the industries, the exercise industries, the TV, exercise, and then the doctors say just go exercise more. In fact, now I'm recalling a recent patient who was frustrated, and I said, "Why are you frustrated?" Because I'm exercising more and I'm not losing weight. And she's exercising more and more, and I'll say, well, exercise doesn't help you lose weight. And no, but I'm frustrated and I'm exercising more, and I say, yeah, I know, because it doesn't work. Well, but I'm frustrated because, and then it finally sinks in that what she's doing doesn't work, even though you think it's going to work more. I just need to exercise more, and diet is more important. And so I was on, speaking of practitioners on the internet, I know most of them. Ted Naiman is a colleague out in Seattle, and we were on an ADAPT event call like this, and I was trying to just explain that you don't need to exercise to lose weight. In fact, I've treated people in wheelchairs, and you have to know Ted. He kind of was like, well, really? Well, I've treated people who are totally paraplegic, and they come to me on stretchers, because we're kind of one up each other, being competitive, like competitive brothers, Well,
the thing is that exercise plays a role in the world, of course.
Yeah, but you don't need it at first.
But you don't need it at first. Exactly. Let's first get healthy, and then we can focus on the fine tuning afterwards, right?
Well, and then we recently had Gary Taubes talk to our group. Gary is internationally known, probably the best investigative journalist in the intellectual movement of people embracing that, sugars are bad. And he would say things like, if you have a greyhound and a basset hound, they're different kinds of dogs. And if you have a basset hound that likes to sleep all day and you put it on a treadmill, it doesn't turn into a greyhound. What are we thinking?
That was a fantastic metaphor. I really enjoyed that.
Thinking that if you just put people on treadmills, they'll become greyhounds, and they'll become Olympic athletes. So they're different types of people, and not being one of those types of people, I totally understand. It's my brother who's the one who's the exercise, and so they're all different styles, and focusing on food again keeps it simple.
So then, let me ask you a question, because I'm sure that a lot of type 2s obviously want to know. if you have two different type 2s, one could potentially come off of medication much quicker than the other, right?
Yes.
Even by eating the same diet. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, and I don't totally understand why, but we need to adjust the medicine on the first day to lower the diabetes medicine because the blood sugar comes down so fast. My record of, what I recall off the top of my head, I keep kind of the highlights. I took someone off 180 units of insulin in 2 days. And, after the fact, I asked, what was going on before. He didn't tell me he was drinking 2 liters of Coca-Cola a day. And so basically he was using insulin to cover the sugar in the Coca-Cola. It was regular Coca-Cola.
So if that person was able to do that in a 2-day period, is it possible that another person does exactly the same, but it takes them longer than the 2-day period?
Well, another recent example, someone came off of 600 units of insulin.
Yeah.
So, our medical world is trying to get more and more insulin into you. And when the volume of the insulin gets too big, they give you more concentrated insulin. So the insulin units just keep going up. She was off 600 units of insulin in 3 weeks and has also lost 30 pounds. So, again, this is prescription. This is more powerful than 5 prescription drugs in this individual because the blood pressure is coming down as well. And yet, I have some people who a year into it, they're still on insulin.
So, okay. So it really depends on the individual, A, and B, it really does depend on what you're eating.
Yes. And the insulin resistance comes from the weight as well. So that if you have a long weight loss journey, odds are you're going to be on insulin and we'll try to get you off it as fast as possible. But you may be on a diabetes medicine until the obesity, the extra weight is gone. So, but this diet does both. It fixes the food and It fixes the underlying insulin resistance, the obesity.
Yeah. So does insulin resistance, you're not born with insulin resistance, correct?
No, right. So children are born metabolically flexible.
So that is the opposite. That is the opposite of insulin resistance. You're either insulin resistant or you are metabolically flexible. So
Correct.
You are born metabolically flexible, but then your diet over time puts you into, obviously, a bad diet over time makes you more and more insulin resistant. Then how quickly can you, so assuming you've been insulin resistant for years, can you completely reverse insulin resistance to become metabolically flexible again?
Yes. Yeah. So insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome, glucose intolerance, all of these are precursors to type 2 diabetes. So these are like, you're going down that pathway toward type 2 diabetes. So you want to reverse, if your doctor is talking about insulin resistance, glucose intolerance, pre-diabetes, now's the time to act. I would love to be able to impact people before any of this is happening.
Right.
The true power of nutrition and diet is to change it before you get any of this. In a lot of doctors' defense, sometimes it's a lot of work to treat people like this to get them off the medicine. But there is variability in different people, and so I know some people will say, "Well, why am I not off in a month?" I said, "Well, because there's some variation. You've lost this weight, you're improved. The blood sugars will come down. I see it from the 300s to the 100s almost immediately, and that's very reassuring and energizing for people to see that immediate improvement in the diabetes. But this is all the same process, same spectrum.
Now, getting back to a course question. So Stephen wants to know when the live discussions are because he lives in Australia and he doesn't want to miss anything. And in fact, on the feed, I also saw somebody in Singapore saying, when are the live sessions and how many live sessions are there. So let me just reassure you in saying that the live sessions in the Facebook group are twice a week, on Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern and on Wednesday. So Dr. Westman is a Monday at 8 and Amy is Wednesday at 8 Eastern. Those are recorded. So we send them to everybody via email the following day. So you will see the replays in your inbox on Tuesdays and on Fridays. So you will not miss anything. And then also don't forget that the replays are not the course. You get immediate access to the course inside of your own private student portal. So for example, if you purchase the course now, you get immediate access right now to the pre-recorded lessons. And then when we start on Monday, we've got the welcome party on Monday, and then twice a week, after that for the next 3 weeks. So that's August 2nd till August 23rd. We will be in the group, in the Facebook group. And whether you join us in the Facebook group or not, you will still receive the live sessions on the replay via email. So I can assure you of that. Okay, Dawn says, I have been doing keto for the past couple of years, but I seem to have really struggled in the past few months. Is this class for beginners? I
think it's for beginners if you've never done it before, and it's for people who've done it a while and want to just learn a little more about how to do it. Definitely to get off a plateau. I mean, we've learned a recurring. We surveyed people who've come through the class, and we've targeted 10 top internet keto things that we need to get you to unlearn. And it basically, you unlearn them automatically because it's not part of our program. So I think it's for if you've been doing it a while and you want to just learn about the basic science of what's going on. There's one module on the paradigm shifts that you need to understand, going from how to look at sugar, how to look at cholesterol, how to talk to your doctor. So we go into that paradigm shift in an entire module in the class. So yeah, I think it's useful for a beginner or advanced person for the practical aspect of just losing weight, or for the deeper understanding of what's going on.
Yeah. So just to reiterate, because I see Julia's asked a question, there are two components to this course, guys. So there's the one component is the course. That's inside of your own student portal. How many lessons are there? Can you just touch on how many lessons are? There's 4 modules.
Yeah. So there are 4 modules and 3 lessons in each module. They're roughly 10, 12-minute videos for you to watch. And there are transcripts of the videos that you can download if you prefer to read, and store it that way. And so I've tried to make it fairly simple. The first module is about nutrition in general, the basics of what you need to know. It's, at a level that a medical student would now know the basics of nutrition, yeah, but also presented in a way that the person who's not medically trained needs to know. And that's that protein comes first, Right. It's amino acids. It's not ketones. If someone comes to you and says, try my diet, you have to have fruit, wrong answer. So protein comes first. So you need to know a little bit about the basics of nutrition. Then there's a whole module on what to eat. That includes the food list that we've studied and used now for 20 years. And you need to know that there are a lot of ways to get started. That's the module on how to get started. And for nutrition, E for what to eat, S for how to start. So actually, like the gentleman I mentioned who just went to fast food places, if you wanted other people to cook for you, no problem. Here's how you do it. If you're going to cook yourself, if you want to, do it in a fancy way, we'll help you figure that out. The final module is training your mindset. So it's 3 lessons per module. And the major factors there are how to look at blood tests, the old way, the new way, to introduce you to the grassroots movement that's going on all around the world in terms of changing the diet and looking at the diet in this way. And you're going to be connected now to people who have done this for a long time, who are able to help you even if there's no one in your specific area who that you can talk to. So you're going to now be connected to like-minded people all over the world.
Yeah, and we also give a ton of bonuses as well in the way of PDFs, inside of the portal as well, and inside of the Facebook group. I would encourage you, if you haven't joined, to join the Facebook group. It really is amazing to do this with others and kind of get swept up in that momentum, and engaging with others. We would highly recommend to get the full course experience, although you don't have to join the Facebook group, but to join the Facebook group, because this is where a lot of great nuggets of wisdom are discussed in the group that you may not necessarily hear if you're not in the group, right? Because we don't send everything via email. We really only send the replays via email. And then, so I would definitely encourage you to join the Facebook group. And then the Facebook group itself is the 3 weeks. That is the support portion of the class. So it is really amazing. It's really amazing. Can you be more, Amelia says, can you be more predisposed to insulin resistance? Okay, so we just covered that. So yes. Let's see what other questions we have. So Monica, so this concerned me, and I actually asked Monica to tune in tonight. I saw this on the Low Carb Forum. She said she decided to stop taking her statin yesterday. She's on a very low dose anyway. She has no other medical conditions, and she wonders if she will now sleep better and have less brain fog. Her doc will not be happy with her. In other words, she's done this on her own, Dr. Westman. My cholesterol was 330. I'm going to see if I can bring the numbers down by eating leaner protein and cut back on the fat intake. And she was asking the group, any other suggestions how to lower the cholesterol? What would you say to her?
Yeah, so that's addressed in the class, in the paradigm shift section, module. And what you have to understand is that there's a change in how you look at the cholesterol levels. The old way was only to look at the LDL and total cholesterol, and if it's elevated, you use a drug to lower the cholesterol. Well, you can actually lower cholesterol by changing to a keto diet. 2/3 of people have a reduction in the cholesterol levels. Again, you're going to hear from the people who have an elevation in the LDL. You're not going to hear from those who don't, because those who don't are happy, or but you don't want to even look at the LDL anymore, I'm afraid. So does get some conflict with the older doctors, the newer doctors, the one who understand metabolic syndrome. It's more important to look at the triglyceride and the HDL in the blood. In fact, I had a recent discussion with a patient who actually, she made her doctor do the test. The doctor really didn't want to do it, and the total and the LDL went up a little bit, and the doctor said, you might need medicine one day for that. And I pulled it up and I looked and I said, but hey, wait, did the doctor look at the other two things? And she said, well, I don't know. And the HDL was over 100. If your HDL is over 100 milligrams per deciliter in the US units, this is a protective element that overwhelms any other kind of measurement in the blood. And the other doctors don't look at HDL typically. Some do, a growing number do. And then the triglyceride level is something that we know is detrimental. And you can actually, if your triglyceride level is over 10,000, you'll be hospitalized for it because there's a concern of pancreatitis. There's no level of LDL or total cholesterol that you'll be hospitalized for, meaning it's not an immediate concern. So it's a risk factor. And one reason doctors will want to push you to be on a drug like a statin is they don't know that there's any other way to go about it.
I know.
Doctors today have been trained to use medications, not lifestyle. So what you can do is politely explain, well, I'm addressing my cholesterol levels by lifestyle, and now don't measure the cholesterol while you're losing weight, because just the fact that you're losing weight can raise the blood cholesterol, and doctors will want to treat you while you're getting better. And anyway, so it's a concern a lot of people have that we'll help you understand.
Yeah.
And I'm just not concerned about an elevated LDL anymore.
Yeah.
But then I've been seeing these profiles for 20 years.
Would you be concerned if somebody just went off cold turkey? I mean, if they're taking we don't know how much obviously she's taking, but if she was taking a little bit of an amount, as she said, like a minor amount.
Oh yeah, no. So yeah, a medicine like a statin drug or a cholesterol treatment drug it's a long-term sort of prevention tool.
Yes.
It's not like you're on the edge of a cliff, or you're going to fall off a cliff, or like a beta blocker or a antidepressant, anti-anxiety medicine that you want to taper, and you'll notice changes. Right now, you can stop those medicines, and in fact, some people notice their muscle cramps and brain fog get better pretty quickly, and that's one test you can do. But of course, I don't gain friends. Other doctors don't like me if I say stop the medicine they've prescribed. I wouldn't like that either. So please talk to your doctor about it before you make any changes in the medication.
Shannon says, I donated a kidney last week. I have been getting mixed messages about how much protein I should now eat with one kidney. Also, what are some great keto foods to keep my remaining kidney healthy?
Well, so that's, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. That's one of the last vestiges of prejudice against this kind of diet, that you have to worry about kidney function. And the reason I kind of laughed is that I now am we're in the final stages of getting 2 papers published. So it'll be in the literature of clinical practices that were looked at in terms of keto diets and kidney function. And there was no problem at all. So this is it's an old prejudice against low carb diets. But just to also let you know that this isn't a high protein diet either.
Right.
So when people will label, put labels on it, but this isn't high protein unless you're pounding protein shakes and doing some bizarre internet keto version. So not to worry. It's okay if you only have one kidney, and the best foods that would be on that food list, the ones that don't have carbs. If you're worried about any medical issue, you monitor it. So you wouldn't just say, oh, the doctor says this, and then 10 years later, think about it again. What you want to do is follow up with the doctor who's monitoring your medical issues as they would, whether it be a kidney function or a liver function or heart function, and see. And in most cases, you'll actually see improvements in these things.
Wendy says she has a 15-year-old daughter with type 1 diabetes and low carb, high protein, no sugar. 15-year-old daughter, type 1 diabetes, and low carb, high protein, no sugar, gluten or grain for 3 years. Okay. Recently diagnosed with PCOS. She does cardio and weight training daily, and she's on placebo for basal and Humulin R for bolus. Any recommendations for supplements to help PCOS symptoms and weight loss?
So this is kind of complicated. I mean, off the top of my head, if there's weight to lose, then you got to address the fewer carbs for a carb restricted diet, or do a calorie restricted diet, or use medications. These are all tools that a weight loss doctor has at our discretion. Type 1 Grit, which is a Facebook group, TYPEONEGRIT, Type 1 Grit. I learned from this group. There are thousands of people with type 1 diabetes. It's free. You do have to answer a question. Do you know who Dr. Richard Bernstein is? So look up Dr. Richard Bernstein. He's a type 1 himself, And I would think I'm not a big supplement guy, so I prefer to use diet and natural things instead of using supplements. So, but if you went to, my colleagues in internal medicine or obstetrics, they'd probably point you to metformin for a way to target insulin resistance and PCOS. But it sounds like start answering these questions at Type 1, ask these questions at Type 1 Grit. The masterclass will help. The diet that we teach is very similar to the diet that is used by Dr. Bernstein in Type 1 Grit. And they're basically following the program of Dr. Richard K. Bernstein, who's just brilliant, one of my teachers through the years.
Kelly says, I started Dr. Westman's program at the end of May. Will the masterclass still be beneficial even though I'm 8 weeks into it?
Well, of course. Well, I mean, you'll learn more detail about why you want to do this. Now, if you don't care about why, so I'm reminded of now when I go get my car fixed and the mechanic tries to tell me, and I had to do this. I said, look, just tell me what I owe you and that it's good to go. So some people don't want to know the detail, and that's fine. But most people who take the class will get an understanding of the flexibility that is there if you don't obsess about macros and the food quality and things like that. So I try to focus on the elements that are most important. And then I think it's important, it makes me feel better to know that there are people all over the world doing this, and that we share the stories from the ADAPT events and the travels that I have done to other countries, learning from these people who are doing keto as well. So of course, I think you can learn if you want to learn more. Sure.
Yeah, for sure. And not to mention that the support that you get in the 3 weeks of the support portion of the class is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you can ask questions and get real feedback and real answers from our team. We answer everybody's questions. I mean, you basically got access to Dr. Westman, Amy, and the ADAPT team for a 3-week period. That's basically what you are paying. It's almost like you can be with us every day. You have access to us every day for 3 weeks. So that's really it in a nutshell. If the support is just phenomenal, it is. There's no other program that I know of that gives the support that we give. Karen says, I've been on keto for about 7 months and recently had my blood work done. I had a decrease in my iron level, but I don't eat liver. What would be a good source of iron on page 4?
Yeah, so page 4 is just another version of the food list that we now call the ADAPT Keto food list, kind of the branded version of page 4. And page 4 came from Dr. Atkins' practice, actually. They created it over 30 years, and then we studied it, and our notoriety in the research world, medical research world, is that we published papers based on this list of foods. And so the foods with iron are the meats, the meat, poultry, liver, of course, would be great. Liver, when you line up the nutritional composition, is the healthiest food that we know of. So the only way I can tolerate liver is through a product called Braunschweiger, which is a way of like liver pate, liver paste.
In the Jewish religion, there's also chopped liver. Chopped liver, which is kind of like a pate. That's the only way I can eat. That's the only way I can eat liver.
Depending on your age, if you're losing iron, you're menstruating, then you'll want to take an iron supplement, because I think maybe 40% of menstruating women get iron deficient just from that. So you may want to use a supplement.
A heavy bleeder.
Yeah.
Right. Gabby says, do I have to do keto eating 20 grams of total carbs every day to reverse my insulin resistance and obesity? Or can I still reverse them by eating 150 grams of healthy total carbs every day?
Maybe. In the book End Your Carb Confusion, we help you figure out what category of carbs would most likely help you.
It depends on how obese you are. I mean, she's got here my insulin resistance and obesity.
Well, right. So the level matters, and whether you have any other kind of predisposing conditions. But my approach that I explain is if someone's coming to me, wants it to work the first time, every time, then I use 20 grams or less. So most people don't want to kind of futz around and do something that doesn't work when they've waited months to get to see me in the office, right? So if you have time to spare, I mean, it's not urgent for you to get results. You might try higher levels of carbs and see. And then if that's not working, then, and I would say a couple weeks would be enough to know. Then you dial down the carbs to the next level and then the next level. But if you want to have it work the first time, every time, like a prescription drug, this will work, then stay under the 20 total grams per day.
And Molly, another question, type 2. I've had type 2 for almost 20 years doing low carb for 2 months. So she's been low carb for 2 months, but she's had type 2 for almost 20 years. How long until blood sugar numbers stabilize?
Yeah, so it depends. I've seen it. The person who had it go away in 3 weeks had diabetes for 10 years. And I've seen people, it doesn't seem to matter how long you've had diabetes. That's not the predictor. It's how much insulin resistance you have. It correlates with the weight, but not perfectly. And then how bad was your diet that we're dealing with? If you were having hundreds of grams of sugar a day, and that hadn't been addressed, you might get better really quickly. But if you had kind of a relatively healthy, lower carb kind of diet, and it was weight and insulin resistance causing the diabetes, it's going to take longer for it to resolve.
Gina says, I'm currently eating a more high protein, moderate fat version of keto. What would be considered moderate fat? My macros are 150 grams of protein, under 20 grams of carbs. We don't know if it's total or net here, and 80 grams of fat.
Yeah, so I don't look at macros. Let me say, I politely look at macros if someone has collected that information for me. And I'll ask, are you hungry? Well, no. Are you hungry? Oh, no. I mean, so what's more important is how you feel rather than the macro. Right. And so the macro changes, the tweaks that you can do are less important than, are you getting great nutrition? Do you feel well? Do you enjoy the foods? So I don't know. And I've had people use apps and do macro calculations that end up telling them they need to eat more.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why they're not losing weight. And I say, because you need to eat less, not more. So don't have a macro tell you what to do, please. That's like, asking the weatherman if it's raining on top of your house. The weatherman can't know that level of detail, and no one out there with an app, if they tell you they know exactly, they're not correct. They can't know what's perfect for you. It's just not possible.
It's not possible. Yeah. Heidi says, is there a cookbook for Adapt Your Life?
No, but we're working on one. And that was actually a philosophical thing we had to work on and kind of go through, because we don't want to tell you what to eat, when to eat, how to cook. We want to give you the fundamental principles of here's the kind of food that you need to stick to. And you can do it in so many different ways. A cookbook would be limiting you. well, but people want it. And so we're responding and working with a master chef who's doing these tweaks and things that he's learned from 20 years of being a chef. So we're kind of roping a master chef who didn't really ever do keto before, but using his intuition and skills to work on a cookbook. But we don't want to limit you with cookbooks. We want
in fact, in the master class, we do have an e-recipe book. So it's just, as Dr. Westman said, we want to just show you, we want to give you ideas of this is what we can do. This is what you should be doing. This is
the peer support, the people coming into the group, posting the pictures of what they're doing. There's so many different styles and ways to do it. That was really kind of, I didn't predict that getting all of these students in one group, there'd be so much support of each other. I mean, and that's just been so great to watch. How, especially if you're a pleaser, you're a giver, you'll be able to support other people in this group and be supported. And I forgot about those recipes. Yeah, Scott has provided those, and we share recipes inside the group. But we don't want to make you think you have to buy a cookbook. That was my point.
Absolutely. So Anna says, I just want to read this to give hope to everybody that's watching. I was diagnosed in 97. I went keto in February of this year, have been able to come off all medication for diabetes. I was on over 100 units a day of insulin, 500 milligrams metformin, how do you say that? Clicizide. Clicazide.
Probably glipizide.
Glipizide. Also lost 50 pounds. So that is just phenomenal, Anna. I mean, we see this all the time, Yeah. Betty says the e-recipe book has great recipes in it. Yes, it does. I think that we've covered everybody's questions. I think if we haven't, we'll go back after the session tonight, and we will answer the questions that we didn't get to. But basically, in wrapping up, Doc, we close the doors tonight at midnight. Why do we do this? Why isn't this course available readily every day, all day? I'm getting so hot in here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to turn the fan on, so forgive me for leaning forward.
Yeah, so we devote all of our resources to helping this group of students. And so that's why we've learned to open it up, close it, get everyone started, devote all of our resources. And, maybe one day we'd have capacity to have more and more people, but at the moment, that we're basically totally devoted to the group that's getting started.
And don't forget, if you call Duke University and you try and get an appointment with you, I mean, there's a 6-month waiting list. That's also why we created this course. We wanted to reach more people all over the world quicker. So this is why we created this in the first place. And the first time we launched was during the pandemic, at the end of 2020. So, and that's another thing, we offering this course right now at $167. I mean, it is easily worth 10 times that amount, but we really wanted to go out of the gate aggressively so that we can reach the most amount of people, especially due to what was going on, in the current circumstances, people losing their jobs. And it was just, it's been a tough time for everybody, and so we are here for you. We are here to help you. If you are going to be with us in the next 3 weeks, we have obviously had a lot of live sessions leading up to this masterclass. You are not going to see that anymore unless you are inside of the masterclass, so either you're with us for the next 3 weeks, and of course you're going to continue on with us, or Of course, we still offer, Adapt Your Life still offers a lot of free information on our Adapt Your Life YouTube channel. And you and Glenn are, every single week you come out with a new episode of, it's called Conversations with Dr. Westman. So if you're not joining us, I would definitely encourage you to, to continue listening to those conversations. That you're always going to get nuggets of gold with Dr. Westman. So however many times you think you've heard something, there's going to be another nugget of gold. So I would definitely suggest you continue listening to those. But, again, this masterclass, we've kind of wrapped it up in a bow, and we are now saying, okay, come with me. We're going to show you together, step by step. Let's do this. This is what we're going to do next, followed by this, followed by that. And so that is really what you're paying for, plus, of course, the access to all of us over the next 3 weeks. I mean, if you consider how much is a doctor's appointment these days, I mean, you're basically getting this course for the equivalent of a doctor's appointment kind of thing. So it really is up to you. But I mean, your health is, of course, more important than ever. We want to be able to it's never too late. It's never ever too late to improve your health. And if you think you can't do this, I can assure you you can. Every single one of our students, most of them, I mean, I would say honestly 98%, that's the success rate that we are getting. 98% of our students are blown away, So, we have 80-year-olds in the class. We have 70 to 80-something-year-olds in the class, that are not tech savvy, and they are getting incredible results. So we can help you guys. I mean, we can help you. So basically, that's what I want to end off. We will definitely post the link to our website, which is adaptyourlifeacademy.com. I would encourage you to go to the website after this. If you still have questions, go to the website, adaptyourlifeacademy.com. Look at the FAQ. In the online course section, go down to where it says Keto Made Simple Masterclass, and it'll take you to the course page. And then we have other exciting courses coming up, right, Doc? I mean, the Academy is working very hard right now. We're working on a cholesterol course that we are hoping to drop this year. In fact, we will be dropping it this year. We're really excited about that course. We have Amy Berger's Stall Slayer Masterclass, which is coming up at the end of in September. Again, you can see that on our website. And then we've got some really exciting things in the works, and we hope you just continue watching us and learning from us. And honestly, we are humbled and honored that you take the time to watch our videos, and we appreciate you, all of you. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. And thanks for you and the ADAPT team helping get this information to so many more people. And just kind of summarize, if you want something to work the first time, every time, come join us. I mean, it's a simple system that I didn't create. I just did the research, wrapped around it, and then kind of honed it, learned about it through the years. But this has been around for 150 years. It's not the internet keto that you hear about from your neighbor. But so if you want it to work, save time, get just the information you need. That's what we will provide.
Fantastic. So we hope you join us. And if you're considering it, as I said, look into the FAQ before 12 midnight tonight, because we do close the doors tonight.
That's 12 Pacific, not
Pacific
Eastern.
time, 12, midnight Pacific time. So you do still have a few hours. So we hope to see you in the course. We'll see. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you so much, Doc.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
You guys inside.